So let's get some more reaction to not only the new cabinet, but our interview with the Prime Minister. With me tonight, our front bench, former BC Premier Christy Clark. She's a senior advisor with Bennett Jones. Former Conservative Deputy Leader Lisa Raitt is here. She's the Vice Chair and Managing Director of Global Investment Banking at CIBC. CTV News political analyst and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair is with us, as is the Toronto Star's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Rob Benzie. Hi, everybody. It's very nice to see you. Rob, I'll start with you. I started off talking to the Prime Minister about the cabinet shuffle because I think there is a lot of change in 24 new faces, but physically, like that front bench during the ceremony was very much the people that we, have become used to helming the biggest portfolios under the last government. What do you think the message was that they were trying to deliver today, that the Prime Minister was trying to deliver?
Well, Vashi, I think as the Prime Minister said to you, he was trying to take experienced ministers and move them to new roles. But he's the change. And I thought it was interesting when he kind of interjected and said, I'm the Prime Minister, and he is the change, and he's embodying that change. I think that some of the other people that he's brought in are really interesting. Lisa and I were at a luncheon yesterday here in Toronto, Empire Club luncheon, where Peter Bethlenfalvy, the Ontario Finance Minister, gave a shout out to Tim Hodgson, who is now the Energy Minister, Federal Energy Minister. And I thought that was intriguing because, of course, Hodgson was the CEO of, or the chair of Hydro One, which is a pretty progressively run utility here in this province. And he's another brainy kind of Goldman Sachs corporate guy that I think that's the kind of tone that the new Prime Minister wants to inject into this. It didn't look to me like the kind of cabinet where it's trying to tell you how to live your life. It's sort of like, we're going to be more competent and govern better. And if they can succeed in doing that, they could be successful and be around for a long time. If they aren't successful, well, Poilievre is waiting in the wings.
Tom, what message do you think the Prime Minister was trying to send with this cabinet today? And ultimately, do you think he was successful?
I think he was successful. I mean, the trick was trying to keep a lot of the older players and show that there was a certain amount of change. It is a bit of sleight of hand, this whole question of the junior ministers, call them what you may. I mean, Trudeau had actually gone down that path. And then you remember when it was, because it's 2015, equality, women and men, Elizabeth Thompson penned a paper pointing out that the women were making a lot more than the men because they were the junior ministers. So he's gone back to that formula, although he seems to have avoided a bit the trap. When you see that many key people from the Trudeau era, I don't think he quite succeeded in separating himself from there. When you see François-Philippe Champagne and Melanie Joly and so many others still there in the front bench. One of the things that he did accomplish is in the energy file, and I think that he's going to be recognized for that both in Alberta and Saskatchewan. The tandem of Wilkinson and Guilbeault has been broken. Guilbeault's off to other things. There'll be a softer part of that might come into his wheelhouse. But overall, the departure of Wilkinson almost became inevitable with the addition of Gregor Robinson. And there's just so much place in cabinet for that many people from the same province. But I think that Wilkinson, while working very hard in the file, wasn't able to move it forward. And I think that people in the resource-producing provinces are going to breathe a bit of a sigh of relief and say that this is good. One mystery, if I might, is Carlos Letao. It's very difficult to understand how the people around Carney recruited him back. He is at the highest level. He's somebody super recognized for being the creme de la creme. He's that good. And all of a sudden, he's got nothing. So there's obviously a backstory there. There are already people who are talking about the fact that he perhaps had been slotted for finance, but of course, Champagne was having none of it. And maybe there was something lower than that offered to Letao, who just said, no thanks, and he's going to be a backbencher. You don't come back from the highest level, you're at the highest level of politics, you leave politics altogether, and you accept to come back. It's certainly not to be a backbencher, certainly not with somebody with that skill set. Also heard rumors that, of course, Bill Blair was still on the list as of this weekend. Again, what happened over the weekend to make him disappear from that list, that hasn't come out yet, but as I do, that in the fullness of time, these things eventually make their way out.
Yeah, there's a few people, Lisa, that weren't going to run, like Sean Fraser and Anita Anand or even Wayne Long, who then decided to run again when it was Mark Carney and not Justin Trudeau leading the party. And all three of them ended up in cabinet, with Wayne Long serving in a Secretary of State position. Your thoughts on what stands out to you and strategically what you think the objective is here?
Well, I always hate it when ministers leave and make the statement that it's about their families, because invariably something happens and that it puts in juxtaposition, oh, I guess you don't love your family that much after all. I mean, the reality is that I would expect that all three expected that they were going to be unemployed at this time as opposed to being back in cabinet. So they're going to continue on and do the job that they've been assigned. I found some of the picks very interesting. If I were to characterize the choices on environment and natural resources, while individually they may be good, if you look at it from a collective whole, the entire oil and gas sector is now going to be run out of downtown Toronto, the 416, because that's where those two ministers hail from. And I don't know whether or not that's going to sit well with respect to our oil-producing provinces, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Newfoundland and Labrador, British Columbia, and that could be a problem going forward. So that means that Dominic LeBlanc is going to have a lot on his scorecard. I would also mention, Vashi, too, that I'm very confused by some of the overlapping nature of all of the ministries. For example, Dominic LeBlanc has the One Canadian Economy, but Chrystia Freeland's in charge of interprovincial trade. Dominic LeBlanc has U.S.-Canada relations, but Nita Anand is the Foreign Affairs Minister. There's some stuff in there that obviously is going to have to get settled. And I think in fullness of time, we'll see the cabinet committees and whether or not there's going to be an inner kind of cabinet. One last thing I would like to point out from your interview with the Prime Minister, he indicated that, this is one of the smaller cabinets. He's actually, I'm sorry, Prime Minister, you're incorrect. PCO's own information puts out the fact that the Harper government had ministers around 26 or 27 with extra ministers of state to bring the whole ministry up to about 37 or 38. He himself has 28 ministers today. It is exactly the same as it was in the past. There's no great kudos on keeping it to 28 today.
What do you think, Christy? I mean, I listened very carefully to what the Prime Minister said in his press conference and in our interview. He clearly wants to denote change through himself. And I think he is convinced that that will be enough to convince Canadians that that mandate for change that he concedes was, a part of, was the thing during the campaign is actually something that can come to fruition. Do you think it's possible? I mean, you've been at the head of a government, right? Like, is it enough that one person can convey that much change?
Yes, it is possible. Because, and it has to be possible because when I've appointed 3 cabinets, and I'll tell you, you're dealing with who voters give you. And you have, so for example, in a province, you'll have regions you want to have represented, you'll have gender parity or not, you'll have ethnic representation, those kinds of things that you're thinking about. And so there's some real limitations on how you can make a cabinet, and I think he's done a very good job of looking amongst the the flowers that Canadians have sent him in the election and deciding to put together the right bouquet for the country. It's not perfect, there's no doubt about it, but I do think that, and it's never going to be perfect, but I do think, he's really showcasing the economic chops of some of these guys. Champagne is very, very good. He's an excellent appointment. Anand is very smart. She understands where money comes from. Tim Hodgson, again, another great choice, I think, because you have to understand that money only comes from investment, private sector, creation of ideas and new things. And those 3 people in particular, Dom LeBlanc as well, I think, really get that. So he's got a few key guys who get the vision, who understand how to implement it. And I think he's a guy who's shown he can really make sure that he is hand on the tiller for the whole thing. I think the only thing I would worry about in this is that in terms of British Columbia, which is really important for more pipelines, whether that's LNG or gas or oil. There are a lot of people in that cabinet from British Columbia, or some from British Columbia, who are dead opposed to making anything happen. So we should look at the big picture. I think that's really good. I think that more granularly, because it's just, some of the people he elected and some of the flowers that voters sent him in terms of the group, it could be a little bit more difficult in places like Quebec and British Columbia when you think about pipelines going to either coast.